Saved by the Bell, episode 6, called Aloha Slater. In this episode, Slater has a chance to move to Hawaii. Zach takes advantage of this to push Slater out. He devises a scheme to convince the girls that Slater is sick, so they can pretend to not want him around so he would want to leave. There's a twist at the end though. Slater does find out and then uses Zach's scheme against him to also deceive his friends. What I kind of really love about the ending of this episode is that you can really see Zach and Slater's bromance at the end. Maybe they realized that having each other around was better than not having each other around. Also, you realize how Zach influences his friends. Because if you notice in the locker room, Screech is the one that kind of puts in Zach's head that he should get rid of Slater. One of the inconsistencies of Saved by the Bell is all the lockers and where they're placed. Like they got rid of the lockers on this side. Some fans are saying it's because it's a separate floor. But the lockers are orange here. They're red here. And they go back to orange in a later episode where the boys are fighting. I also find it interesting how much they dress the boys as girls in Saved by the Bell. Saved by the Bell, episode 7, The Substitute. The gang gets a substitute teacher for their drama class that the girls are a little bit more than intrigued by. Zach's hair rating in this episode is a 7. It's a little grown out, but a lot blonder. There's a little bit of wisp going on. It gets a little bit worse after this, so I really like this. So this episode is one of the more controversial, inappropriate subjects for Saved by the Bell. I don't think it is uncommon for high school students to have crushes on really hot teachers. I think what is odd about this episode is how Mr. Crane reacts to them having a crush on him. He invites them to sit down with him at the Max. Nowhere does he mention that him being older than them and a teacher was inappropriate for him to have a relationship with these girls. I guess in every episode you have to have a scheme. In this one, they hire an actor to pretend to be his girlfriend. It's just really confusing. There really didn't need to be a scheme because in the name, he is a substitute. He won't be there forever. Saved by the Bell, episode 8, Cream for the Day. In this episode, Screech discovers a miracle zip cream which Zach uses to sell to the school. Of course, it backfires on him as always. Zach's hair rating in this episode is like a 4.5. It actually gets worse after this. The only saving grace is this little swirly thing that's happening in this corner right here. There's also a joke in this episode at his expense. Later says something about the amount of mousse he uses in his hair. I wish Dustin Diamond saw how endearing Screech's character was. Screech is like the only teenager I know that would embrace their zit and was so proud of it. Also, how wholesome is Kelly in this episode? She can barely call Zach a name when she finds out that he's given her bad zit cream. Instead, he makes her feel bad about how vain she is. He turns it around on her. That is Zach Moore's manipulation at its worst. Also, I don't have a picture, but do you notice how crazy talented Slater is? He can beatbox, does football, and wrestle. Saved by the Bell, episode 9, called Pinned to the Mat. In this episode, there's a career fair, and the gang pretty much knows what they want to be except for Slater. When Slater is told wrestling is not a career, he decides to quit the wrestling team. This puts Zach in a tight spot because he makes a bet with the rival team that Slater is going to win. Zach's hair rating in this episode is a 3. It's getting a little wild and crazy. Look at, it's like a whole 2 inches from his forehead. Also, the home ec teacher in this episode is just so fun. I think she must have been in Broadway or something. She does a little singing and a little tap dance. I'm pretty sure Screech was very happy he didn't have to dress up this episode. Instead, it was Slater in this ridiculous costume. One of the things I noticed in this episode is how highly Zach actually thinks of Slater. Like he knows Slater is good enough to win the wrestling competition. Also, again, I'm going to mention, do you notice that Slater's good at everything? He joins the cooking club and is so good at it. There is nothing Slater is bad at. Also, the award for best confused face always goes to Slater. Saved by the Bell, episode 10, called Beauty and the Screech. In this episode, Zach convinces Screech to tutor Kelly in science, hoping Kelly will take him to a George Michael concert. However, it backfires on him when Kelly actually starts having a crush on Screech. Zach's hair rating is a 7. It is kind of grown out, but it's less crazy like in the last episode. And I kind of feel like this episode was filmed prior to the last episode, just because you know that they run the episodes out of order. This is also the first time we meet Kevin, which is one of my favorite characters on the show. Why does Kelly feel like she has to take the 2 guys? Why didn't she just invite Jesse, who she told that she won the tickets? I thought it was also funny that Lisa was horrified that Kelly was in Screech's room. How is that more horrific than being in Zach Morris's room where he manipulates you into trying to kiss him? This episode actually proves to me that Zach actually wasn't Kelly's type. She proves that on a lot of episodes. Also, I just noticed there was no building scene in this episode as well. Zach didn't mess everything up this time. Very rare for him.